So welcome and thank you for being here to Redefining Digital Security. So what we're proposing here is the need for a new approach to IPV victims. Well, for IPV victims. So first of all, who am I? So I'm Corinne, he just said that. I am the co-founder and spokesperson for Lab 2038, or 2038, that we co-founded in 2016. I mask during the day as a cloud security specialist, so that's it. And you can find me around at PK Lig right here. So, who are we? What is Lab 2038? Most of you have not heard of us, but hopefully you will eventually soon. We're a nonprofit organization based in Montreal. Our difference is we are a multidisciplinary team, so we come from everywhere from academia, sociology, cybersecurity, engineering. We set out to propose or help develop cybersecurity for marginalized groups. So making it a bit more affordable and accessible for everybody, not just experts. And we've been working accidentally on IPV for almost 10 years now. What is this? So what do? We do basically mostly media interventions. We have a lot of trainings and consulting. We started out with social workers and caseworkers for IPV. Eventually, we went on to talk with IPV survivors. And most recently, we started getting involved with law enforcement and giving them trainings about how maybe this should be an issue they should address a little bit more. And also, we hope that we will be able to collaborate with legal teams very, very soon. So, what's IPV? Most of you will know, but for the others, it's just an acronym for Intimate Partner Violence. It's a new term to design domestic violence or domestic abuse. It's all the same thing, generally. And we found out as cybersecurity experts that our usual threat models do not apply in the context of IPV. It's still a very gendered issue, and we have some numbers to back that up. We, like I said, we've been working with shelter workers for a while now, and this research actually came out of their backstage talks, the moments when we were not during the trainings that were telling us how desperate they were to get some second opinions, some help, any kind of help for technology facilitated violence. So we started working with them, and we thought that we should address this issue because IPV is really spreaded a lot. And also, it's, like I said, the threat model do not apply. Well, the threat model that we usually use do not apply here. Eva Galperin, founder, not co-founder, but project manager, president of something at EFF, we love you. She basically mentioned that attacks, types, and patterns of IPV perpetrators resemble more advanced persistent threats, so APT, than usual cyber criminality. And this is really wild to us because that's not taken care of by nobody, really. Anybody that interacts with the real world will not try and protect you from IPTs. They will just try to protect you from any kind of simple phishing attacks. So we need to do something about that because, you know, some stats, 1 out of 3 women over 15 has experienced a form of intimate violence, whether that will be financial, sexual, physical, psychological abuse, like just take that into account. In those cases, for 98% of those cases, perpetrators will be using technology to intimidate or threaten their victim, and that is a stat from 2012. So you can absolutely believe that it has been worse since. Also, since we've been working with shelter workers, the risk for homicidal events will jump up to 80% at the moment or shortly after the separation. So it is a very delicate step for the victims at that time. And it makes any leaks, any data leaks extremely dangerous for the victims and also for the shelter workers and also for the other IPV victims that are at that shelter. So yeah, we got some pretty scary horror stories from those, basically from all of those human leaks, as Eva Gelperin calls them. And just to put that in perspective again, in 2022, 537 women died in Canada from IPV. So it is a very real issue. We estimate that in Canada, a woman dies every 48 hours, and that is very, very concerning. And we don't have much to protect them proactively. And this is our problem. All the work that we do here at Lab 2038 was very reactive. We're here to help the people that help IPV victims after the violence has occurred. And that is not good enough. That's just simply not good enough. We need to do better. And sadly, we realize that this is not up to us. We can be here to respond. We can be here to guide people that want to do better. But what we need actually is more awareness and more governance, especially from service providers. From those horror stories that I was talking about, many of them were about very simple data leaks that came from service providers that were just unwantedly giving the address, the new address of the shelter, or the new address of the victim to the perpetrator. And that happens a lot. We have a lot of stories of ordering a pizza and the pizza delivery company does not understand that this is an IPV case, and the next time somebody calls and says, oh, I have a new address, but like, can you just tell me again? I forgot my postal code, and then you have the new address. So that's a thing. So it's, imagine human engineering, social engineering, but from the person you know best in the world. That's pretty scary. So we wondered what's being done right now to help prevent information leaks from service providers. And like I said, Eva Gelperin calls them human leaks, which I like a lot. We want providers to be better geared towards protecting us from abusing X, because right now they're better geared towards protecting you from state actors than from your abusive X, which again is terrible. So this brought us to the report that we published in 2023, which was very gratefully sponsored by the OPCC, which is the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, and they generously helped us to cooperate with the CDEACF, which is now called Co-Savoir, and l'Alliance des Maisons de deuxième étape, which is a shelter alliance mostly. Yeah, and we set out to provide recommendations to digital services providers and enhance the service and privacy of IPV victims. So the goal was basically to identify process vulnerabilities from service providers that could lead to data leaks, evaluate the feeling of safety for IPV victims who use those services, and also to help protect these women from consequences of hasty data collection. So first of all, we set out to do a literature review to see what we know, what's written out there, what's written about the subject. And we had those criterias in English and French. We checked out for everywhere in the world, and those are the keywords that we're using, both in French and English, mostly for IPV and surveillance in both languages, which brought us to have about 100 papers to read. And we found out that technology, of course, allows for new tools to control and surveil, which creates new forms of violences and also intensifies others. So, great. We had a lot of legal case studies, mostly in the United States. We also have, well, most references offer solutions for IPV victims to defend themselves, but after the technology facilitated abuse has started, so, you know. And no references at all review businesses' policies for data collecting organizations. So in conclusion, you know, victim blaming. So you should have enabled 2FA, girl. That's on you. And that's, yeah, that sucks. So yeah, we really need to talk about this, absolutely. So second step, we went to do surveys and focus group and to understand what's needed. What do shelter workers and IPV victims need from us, cybersecurity specialists? So first of all, we did a first step that was surveys. So we did a survey that was available in 2022. We sent it to the 17 shelter from Alliance MH2. We had an 88% participation rate, which was great. And we mostly had questions about technological stack, what they used, how they chose the providers, the level of trust they had in those providers, and eventually the general feeling of safety working with those providers. Second step, we also have focus group, which happened at the summit of Alliance MH2, which reunited about 60 frontline workers from all over Quebec, and we divided them in 4 groups. We guided the discussion. Shout out to Anne-Sophie and Fanny, who are right here in the office, who helped us do that, which was great, talking to volunteers. And we wanted to offer them the opportunity to further the discussion started in the surveys and dig a lot deeper into the shelter's experience human leaks, and also to give them an opportunity to talk to us about their experiences firsthand, to tell us those horror stories I was telling you about. And the answers were pretty yeah, pretty concerning. So they view cybersecurity as important as physical security. And we're talking about people who have no experience whatsoever with cybersecurity at all. They just know it exists. They just know they need it. Second of all, we had, they need provider security measures, which are not hard to find, which are available anywhere on the internet. They would love to not have this general feeling of anxiety and dread when it comes to choosing a provider. Most of them just feel like they don't have a choice when it comes to choosing providers. Some shelters have even banned shelters. Some providers have even been banned from shelters just because we could not find any information on how they would handle IPV cases. So yeah, and some only because the terms of services were just too complicated to understand. So there's something at stake here. Providers should be, you know, a bit aware of that. So conclusion from that first part is that IPV victims and shelter workers really do need an adequate training on privacy and cybersecurity, and they're asking for it really hard. They would love policy changes from some provider. For example, avoid passing on files, victim files from employee to employee without any concern for privacy. Adequately flagging APV cases, which sometimes is not even possible. Delete the perpetrator's contacts from IPV cases, because oftentimes the perpetrator's contact is the second on the list, and it will be contacted if the first person does not answer fast enough. And obviously allow special account managements for shared devices. We have some very, very troubling systems in place due to shared service. I don't know if you know, but a woman cannot take back her own phone number without the approval of the perpetrator. Doesn't matter if she pays for it, doesn't matter if she's been using it for years. It's just not her call to make. So yeah, that's one. Then we went on and did some case studies to see what's actually being done right now from the providers to help and do something about this situation. So we had 3 categories of providers. We had like processing services, so food delivery, transport services, etc. Those might seem really, really basic, but you know, to make a food delivery, you need a physical address, and that is a very, very dangerous thing to know if you just fled an IPV situation. We have a lot of platform and softwares, and also there was tech support, so anything from IT to customer service or any division of a service company that provided support in any kind of way. And then we divided the platform and software category in 2 with apps and digital services. So apps, of course, social networks, entertainment, and and digital service with shared content and collaborative tools and IoT. The digital services and the tech support really resembles each other in the motivation for data collection, which is mostly how which is a more efficient way of separating everything. So product and services usually will only ask for basic contact info, so phone numbers, delivery addresses, and so on. Application services will actually build their entire business model for data collection to be able to sell it eventually, but that's not how they sell it. And digital services and tech support have the same thing where they want the data necessary to provide a service. So data collection is not the first demand for those, but they still have a lot of information that they can share and they have to manage. So we made an analysis for that with 3 main focuses. We checked out if there were any form of recognizing cases of IPV and harassment for anybody in the company. We checked if there was an incident response measures, and if there were, how good they were. Eventually, we went to see what was the organizational awareness of the threat, meaning how aware were each employee that they were the first line of defense for those women that were their customers. No, that's what's not supposed to be there. So we did some case studies, and we had 5 providers that we went out and checked for it, but we cannot tell you about none of them. We can just give you like general insights. Yeah, sorry. Just give us beer afterwards, we'll talk. Just not on stream. So, result, things are not good, unsurprisingly. So, first of all, nobody shares their internal policies online. Nobody does it. No policy was specific to IPV at all. Customer service employees are prohibited by law from asking questions that are too personal. For example, are you moving because of an IPV situation? They cannot ask that legally. Oh yeah, and we are only like talking, the policies that we'll show you later on are just like the general legal policies that we could find because there's no IPV policies at all. And yeah, but there's a silver lining. Things are not good except for one provider that we love very much. That's not perfect, but doing a lot more than all of the others. Yeah, they have that provider in particular has an incident response protocol for IPV. They recognize any localization or contact information as sensitive data, and they protect them as such. Employees with reasonable doubts can and should flag suspected IPV cases. For example, if some customer asks, could my ex have access to my data? That's a red flag, and they should flag it as, yeah, there's a risk here. So that's reasonable doubt. It's not a lot. Also, those cases are then handed over to a specialized team, specialized in IPV team. So from there on, they just take out your case from the general stack of other cases. Like this one will be handled by a team that is specialized for IPV from there on. So nobody outside of that team will ever have access to your file again. And they implemented a pilot project for a dedicated line with IPV shelters. So the MH2 shelters that we're talking about created this pilot project, which means that they have a dedicated line with that provider. That means that they can go and ask, and they will only talk to the specialized team that I was talking about. So from there on, they never have to re-justify the fact that they're in an IPV situation. They don't have to put in the context anything. They're just right there, right away. So, conclusion part 1. Things don't look so good. So not a lot of providers want to talk about IPV. Some even mentioned being afraid of looking like they're doing it for political gain. I don't know how we'll call that in the future, like pink washing or whatever. But yeah, they think it's really, yeah, they'd rather just not be a part of that conversation. Some, and of course, there's no law, there's no incentive for those providers to actually care about IPV. Too few providers have specialized policies for IPV cases. Oh, yeah, that was it. No. Okay, so part 2, punchline, we know we can do better. So it's very clear that sharing details of specialized security policies with the general public would be very, very helpful for victims that could eventually change providers. You know, if you don't want to go back to the same provider that just treated you so bad, you'd like to know more. So that would be a really good selling point for some people. So forget the political gain, just think about helping people, maybe, I don't know. Also, creating dedicated resources and helplines for IPV victims. Once again, the victim doesn't have to self-declare that she's a victim, doesn't have to explain the situation, just call the special landline and they know why you're here. Like, you don't, it's like calling SOS violence conjugale. They know why you're here, you know why you're talking, we're good. Also, ensuring clear and efficient communication when speaking with IPV victims. So, no, of course, forget about just the general gaslighting that goes on in every service providers or police officer. Just, you know, you're here. I consider you as a human person with reasonable doubts about your own situation. Maybe you know what you're talking about. Let's start from there. And also training employees to recognize and guide IPV victims to the right department or team would be very helpful again. And we went a little bit further for those apps that I was talking about. We did more use cases just to see, like, in the UI, in the general practices of just using day-to-day use of those apps, is there anything that's helpful for IPV victims again? So research criteria is really pretty obvious. The highlights are here. So security settings, accessibility, there's only Facebook where you can access those security settings in 2 clicks or less. 2FA, everybody has 2FA, which is great, but I think not so long ago, Facebook and Netflix were the only one that could use another kind of 2FA, like the other ones only had one kind, which was usually your phone number. Since then, Apple has changed that. They decided now you can use YubiKeys also, but you have to have 2 of them. So yeah, there's like too little and too much, but yeah, going there, I guess. There's activity review accessibility, so how fast can you go and check what devices are connected to your account. Connected devices name, everybody has that, but lower -1 point for Netflix because they still have the IP address that's accessible when you go and see the connected device, which gives you a lot of information about somebody's location. And also TikTok and Facebook and Apple have a lot of granularity in their settings, so they have a lot of where you can tweak your security settings exactly. That is good and bad. It's good for people like us who know what they're doing, but let's say my mom has a situation where she has to really get into the details. She will only be overwhelmed with this, and most people will be because it's a lot. So what are the risks, you ask now? All of that is really nice, but like, what happens physically in the real world? Well, you know, social networks are really good with that. So you can get, let's say a victim has not already left the situation of IPV, like she's still living with the perpetrator. Any risk of targeted ads from the victim research and or browsing history could lead to finding out groups or Facebook groups or, you know, associations, shelters where you would have looked for information could come up with for your next person to see. Friend suggestion also for IPV organizations and help groups. There's also friend suggestion of the victim's new profile, since let's say Facebook has a lot of algorithm to check and see who do you know? You might know this person. Well, there's a lot of chances that if you kept your friends, which are still the friends of the perpetrator, well, that perpetrator will have your new profile suggested to them as a new friend, which is, again, not really what we want to see happen. Places and or events suggestions that reveal the victim's whereabouts, again. And also there's risk for entertainment platforms, so mostly harassment and discredit to victims. Discredit because usually it happens with modification of favorites or saved contents. You can also see algorithm reprogramming where I like to look at cats videos, but then suddenly all I see are, I don't know, beheading or catastrophes or road accidents. So that's something. So it's not detrimental to my physical well-being, but when I will go out and go see a police officer and say, my algorithm is all fucked, I wish somebody would do something about it, they will say, well, nobody cares, you know? That's not important. But it messes with some victim's head. We had actually one case of one woman who called us and said, I know what I'm gonna say is crazy. I know at that point where I checked in myself at Douglas Hospital because I really think I'm crazy. And they told me there was nothing wrong with me. So, and that one was a really insidious one, like small changes happens, random messages were popping all the time from referencing her daily life that she was doing and not necessarily online. So yeah, you cannot explain that feeling of being watched, but it happens, and this is a really good way of harassing. Yep. Also, and data erasure, of course. If I made a playlist and it's not there anymore, it's not life-threatening, but it is annoying for sure, and just adds to the pile of harassment that I'm already facing. So, the miracle now is that there's a new trend of configuration assistance. So we have Facebook that did like a kind of a usable, accessible UI guiding users through all the security settings. It's a good start, and also you have the function see as, which helps you to see like what a friend or an acquaintance or somebody that's completely out of your circle would see, which is a very helpful feature. But Apple really is a good student right now because they made an IPV specific approach to those configuration assistants. They have, let's say, they don't say that out loud, but they have a lot of features that look, well, scream IPV intervention. So they have a warning before enabling any changes that will be visible from the exterior. Let's say I want to take out the credentials for somebody that is in my Apple family and sharing my location. If I stop that interaction, the perpetrator will know that I stopped the tracking. And you need to know that like those perpetrators are highly motivated agents. They want to take control. They want to keep that control, absolutely. And every time we cut a line of control, they will find a new one, most of the time. And oftentimes that will lead to the risk of them popping physically into the life of the person they're threatening. They also, so Apple Configuration Assistance also has an emergency exit button that just erases everything that you were doing and gives you something really trivial to look at. And also they have a security control feature for emergency reconfiguration. So let's say I'm going through a really serious IPv crisis. Right now, let's say I just left the house I was sharing with the perpetrator. I can go into the security control feature and it will literally take me by the hand and tell me, this is what this feature does, this is what this security setting is for, do you want to change that? And they will do that. Like, it's a whole program, it's really well done. It's just a little bit hard to find, but it's a really good start. So, final conclusion, finally. You know, IPV victims should not have to become cybersecurity specialists, especially not in a crisis situation where they're already worried for their well-being. This is not a good time for learning anything, and you should not have to be an expert to survive. You don't need to be an IPV expert to be able to help also, since we're here at NSEC and there's a lot of credentials in this room. Really, just ask. Any IPV victim or shelter workers is dying to have help. They're dying to have your expertise. Just hit up the local one and they will be so very grateful for your help. So yeah, if there's anything to left to you, that it's up to us to do better. So thank you. Are we doing questions or? Okay. So yeah, if anybody has comments, questions, they want to ask for stories, and Sophie is right there and she's ready to jump in. Yeah.
What can we do to help the mission of Lab 2038?
Oh, that's a good one. So the question was, what can we do to help Lab 2038? We're really looking for help. So if you have spare time and you want to train police officers, shelter workers, you want to have direct interaction with IPV survivors, we have a program right now that's called Tech Care. And what we do is we go and meet IPV victims to just try and see if their iPhone, iPad, cell phone router has been compromised. And if anybody here is like a mobile expert, we really want to have you on our team just to be able to adequately and really efficiently scan devices to know if there are spywares anywhere on them. And there are so many, we get so many calls, especially now that our name is going out there. So yeah, if you want to help just scanning devices, you have a really cool project on GitHub, you want to help us, just hit us up. We'd love that, absolutely.